It's the day after the blowout. What the Orlando Magic did at practice and what they need to do moving forward today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is February 27th, 2025. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, find me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD and on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, the day after the blowout, how the Orlando Magic reacted, what they said, what they did after their 40-point loss to Cleveland Cavaliers, what they have to do moving forward. We'll get to all that coming up here in just a moment. First, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. You can make Locked On Magic even bigger part of your day with the Locked On Magic Daily Newsletter, the one-stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Magic Newsletter. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. We are nearing the last quarter of the season. We will hit the quarter mark of the season, or the three-quarter mark of the season for the Magic, at least on Sunday. Eventually, the other teams are going to catch up in games played. The Magic have played more games than any team in the league. Miami currently has 3 games in hand on Orlando. They're only down by 2 wins, but making the game on Thursday pretty big. But usually this time of year, you're not seeing teams exert themselves very much. You're not seeing tons of practice. You're not seeing these intense practices. You save those for the beginning of the season. Right now, you're trying to preserve bodies. You're trying to stay fresh because the pressure on these games is starting to grow. The fatigue of going through an entire season. I know everyone hates saying this because they stay in nice hotels. They're paid very handsomely. They're on the charter jets. Travel is tough. I don't care who you are. And so you use your time at home to get some work in and get some practice in, but you usually don't go hard. You don't play scrimmages. You don't do full contact. You're trying to preserve those bumps and those bruises. After the way the Orlando Magic played on Tuesday, the Magic had no choice but to go for it. They had no choice but to make sure they got those details down, that they figured some things out at full speed. The Magic, at least to us in the media, told us that it was a good practice, high energy, high intensity, good to get up and down, good to just kind of get that speed going again. But there's obviously a lot more that needs to be done. And everybody always has a good practice. Everybody practices well. It's how that turns out in the games. And while the Magic tried to simulate game pressure and game intensity and game speed in practice, they don't have a Steph Curry waiting for them. They don't. And so the question is always, how does the team respond in the big picture? How does the team step up and step out when the lights turn on? That's the part we don't know. And that's the part that seems to be the biggest struggle right now. Cole Anthony said it pretty clearly after the game. And Cole Anthony, by the way, hyperextended left knee. He is questionable. Jamal Mosley said he did not participate in practice on Wednesday, so he was not part of all this stuff going on. But Mosley said that he does not anticipate Anthony will miss much time, if any at all. Very good chance that he plays on Thursday. So good stuff there. Cole seemed great in the locker room. We talked to him after the game on Tuesday, at least physically. Definitely noticeable limp, but we'll see. But Cole Anthony said after the game Tuesday, they're just not on the same page yet. It's been a struggle to get everybody kind of working together, talking, communicating, being on the same level, being on the same page. And That is a frustrating thing to hear at this point of the season. And a game like Tuesday's highlights the responsibility that this team needs to take on. The communication, the togetherness this team needs to take, the trust this team needs to take. It's a big thing that I talked about yesterday, or hope I talked about yesterday. The Magic have to figure out how to stay in sync, how to not let lulls derail them completely as they have in the early part of the game against the Hawks and the third quarter against the Grizzlies. The Magic have to find ways to stop the bleeding and do it together. The aftermath of the blowout, as I always say this, 30-point losses and 40-point losses say more about the losing team than they do about the winning team. Look, Cleveland is very good. I will repeat this because I'm sure I said this yesterday. The Magic could have played really well and still lost that game by 15. Cleveland is really good. They made the Magic pay for every mistake that they made. And even when the Magic were playing well, Cleveland played better. They are a better team, plain and simple. So you don't want to rush too quickly to judgment, because while it is disappointing to say this, it is true. The Orlando Magic and the Cleveland Cavaliers are not playing the same game right now. They just aren't. The Magic are playing the Heat, the Hawks. We'll give them the Pistons. Pistons are playing very well right now. I'm not denigrating the Pistons. They're playing the Warriors and that kind of level of play. And the Warriors are playing very, very well right now too. I'm just saying that because they're the next opponent. The Magic needs some introspection to get themselves on the same page. And Franz Wagner said it very clearly too. There is a challenge to the entire team to speak up, to speak out, to let their voices be heard, to let their opinions be known, to figure out a way to work together. Paolo Banchero said much of the same thing after Tuesday's game, saying, look, we could practice all we want, but we've got to make the change happen during the games. Something's got to change. I know a lot of people took that to mean that something's got to change with the roster in the offseason. And look, I don't think anyone's denying that that part is true. But he was really referring directly to a question about what they have to do to make this work. The Magic can't do the same old, same old. So Franz, admitted himself he is a kind of quiet guy. The Magic are missing one of their loudest voices in Mo Wagner, a guy who would not let them quiet down. They're missing a big voice in Jalen Suggs, someone who will not let their effort let up. They're missing two key players who speak up and vocally demonstrate what they need to do. And so, yes, Franz Wagner is one of the guys that the Magic are pressing on and leaning on to step up into this leadership role. This is the test. And I'm going to talk more about this here later on in the show, but this is the test. Can you respond to this loss? What are the loss means nothing if you don't learn a lesson from. Maybe it's a lesson you should already know. Maybe we shouldn't be talking about these things, especially since continuity was such a big piece of the puzzle. Critically so. The Magic need everybody to step up right now. They need to stay on the same page. They need to stay and trust and believe in their process. As silly as that might sound to some of you. And look, there are flaws in the process. I'm not going to deny that. We'll talk about some of them coming up here in a moment. But the Magic have to rely on each other. I said this after the win over the Hornets. The only way the Magic are getting out of this is together. They have no one else they can rely on. There's no one coming to save them. They've got to figure this out. And look, the injuries have played a role. The Magic's continuity was disrupted. The Magic's flow was disrupted. They're playing different lineups. They're still getting guys back into rhythm, but we're 15 games into it, and nobody is going to use that as an excuse. It might be the reality. It might be the reason, but it is not an excuse for them not being where they want to be. They haven't shown it. The Magic are what their record says they are. But the Magic know they are better than what they've shown. The Magic know they can be better. They can do more. They are capable of so much more. And it's on them to prove it. And that's what Wednesday's practice, and that's what the aftermath, and that's what the lesson of all this needs to be about. No more messing around. No more getting down on yourself. No more woe is me looking for something that should be there but isn't. They have to earn it. And if that's what they did Wednesday in practice, they'll be fine. But we've been saying that for months now. This is who they are. And the hope is that they will be the better version of themselves rather than the worst version of themselves more often. Obviously, so much of this is about the obvious thing. Simple fixes for the Orlando Magic's offense coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. If you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Look, I live in Florida. We don't have access to FanDuel because of government, but if you have access to it, whether you're backing your team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit the clutch three, you will never miss your chance to get in on the action. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Obviously, the biggest impediment to the Orlando Magic doing anything right now is their offense. You don't need me to recite stats. You don't need to recite ranks. It's bad. 29th in the league in offensive rating, 30th in three-point field goal percentage, the first three-point field goal percentage in the league in the last 10 years, yada, 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 yada. The Magic are not going to do anything meaningful until they hit threes. And look, the joke of it all is the Magic are 16-6 when they shoot at least 33% from three. 16-6 when they shoot 33% from three. They just have to make one out of every three threes. The league average is like 35, 36%. Might be a little bit more now. The Magic don't need to be league average to win and get some pretty big wins themselves because their defense, except for Tuesday night, second worst defensive ever of the season on Tuesday night. The worst was that game at Boston. They're good enough. They are good enough to compete if they defend at an elite level and they make just enough threes to squeak by. That's the reality. That's the truth. That's how this thing works. So the Magic have to find ways. They have to make shots. I mean, look, there is a lot I think that you should like about the Magic's process. If the Magic had reliable shooting, they're getting all the shots you want. According to NBA.com's tracking data, the Orlando Magic are, pull this up, where'd it go? The Orlando Magic have dropped a little bit, but they're 19.3 3-point attempts per game that are wide open, which means closest defender is 6 or more feet away. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14th in the league. That's actually been dropping, so that quality has decreased. On top of all this, the Orlando Magic are actually one of the better teams in the league in getting corner threes. They've dropped in that category a little bit too, but they average 9.9 corner three-point attempts per game. That's up from last year. So generally, the Magic get good three-point looks. You can't be so upset with their three-point looks. It's about confidence in making them, taking them when they're open, and getting the volume up that you need. My biggest criticism of Jamal Mosley, and this is dating back years, you can probably find an episode somewhere in my archive where I say this. Jamal Mosley has always coached a team to be what they are going to be rather than what they are. This team is not a three-point shooting team. And they have kind of banged their head against the wall to try and get the three-point shooting to go in their favor, and it hasn't turned. And of course, like, part of this is, yes, a lot of those open shots are the defense giving them open shots. Part of this is that's what the defense is giving you. They're not giving you anything in the paint. They're not giving you anything in the lane. But the Magic still have to find better ways to manipulate space, to figure out ways to use the teams loading up the paint to find gaps and score. The Magic need to cut and move more. They need to pick up their pace. And that's generally something they've been better at since the All-Star break. Just taking a look at those numbers. The Orlando Magic are 29th in the league in pace with 96.7 possessions per 48 minutes. After the All-Star break, the Magic are up to 97.5. Some of that is they played some pretty fast teams. Atlanta, Washington, and Memphis are three of the highest paced teams in the league. They kept them below their pace, but above the Magic's pace. So they are trying to pick up the tempo a little bit. On top of that, if you look at fast break points, the Orlando Magic are 22nd in the league with 14.2 fast break points per game. Again, 4-game sample size, but since the All-Star break, the Orlando Magic are third at 22.3. Something the Magic have always had to do a better job of, and that is including being more efficient at these opportunities. There's one thing they did really well against Cleveland actually on Tuesday. The Magic do need to look for easy ways to score. They need to steal points. And running off your turnovers, running off those misses, getting out in transition, getting into that offense earlier is huge. I looked it up today. Orlando is, I believe, 4th or 5th in the league in most field goal attempts, or they're top 10 at least, in most field goal attempts in the last 4 seconds of the shot clock. They shoot like 33% on those shots, among the worst in the league, naturally. To me, that suggests those are not quality looks. Those are rushed looks because they're not getting into their offense soon enough and not taking those shots, or not getting clean shots at the end of the shot clock buzzer. They're forcing them. Of course, your percentage is going to be low if you're forcing shots when you have to. The biggest fix for the Magic's offense is not to increase their possession count. That's not what I care about. The biggest fix is to get into their sets quicker. Give yourself more time to find good shots. It's not rocket science. Making shots, it's not rocket science. Creating more movement, not rocket science. Over the last several games, the Magic have started using Paolo Banchero more as the roll man. A lot of some of their best offense on Tuesday came when Paolo Banchero got the ball in a pick and roll because they doubled Franz or they doubled whoever. And he either had a smaller defender on him and he took him to the basket, or he got into the lane, got in the middle of the paint, got the ball in motion, and found Wendell Carter in the dunker spot for alley-oops, or was able to hit shots around the rim. Jamal Mosley has to be more creative with how he uses his best players. Getting Paolo a standstill post up, or allowing him to slow the game down, or take a beat to ISO his man and try and do the hero shot, that's not going to work. It's just not. You manipulate space by keeping the defense guessing, by keeping them in constant motion, by making sure that defenders don't just stare at the ball. They have to be aware of who they're guarding. That's typically what good shooting does. Spacing and shooting forces the defenders to watch their man. They can't just zone in on a guy, because if they don't, they'll kick out to three-point shooter shoots, and all that goes the way it goes. Without shooting, you create space through movement. You create space by moving guys around the perimeter and creating seams for your guys to attack before the defense can attack it. It's all about quick decisions. It's all about moving quicker. And by all accounts, that is something the Magic focused on in their practice on Wednesday. Again, I'll believe it when I see it. I'll believe there's better offense when I see it happen on the floor on Thursday or whenever it happens. The Magic have to be better. They have to be more proficient, and they just simply have not this season. Again, I still think there's a lot that's right about the Magic's process. I really do. I'm drag me as much as you want. If the results aren't there, the personnel is not there to run the kind of offense they have. And I agree, the Magic need to make tweaks to their offense or find ways to help their stars be more effective. I don't think Jamal Mosley's done Paolo Banchero any favors this year. Certainly after the injury. He's treated Paolo like he's fully healthy Paolo and not still working his way back from injury Paolo. Franz Wagner took things much, much quicker, and he's figured some things out quicker than Paolo did because Franz's offensive game is a little bit more varied. Paolo is a battering ram that's kind of lost a little bit of that battering ram because of the injury. And so again, some of it is it's injury. You got to let him figure it out and feel it out, and he's gotten better at it. I want to give him that credit. Jamal Mosley, I think, has not necessarily put his players in the best position to succeed offensively. He has suffered the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting the same results. It's not that the process is bad. They're getting the shots that they should want. They're not making them. And so now you got to find a way to make it easier to get to make those shots more comfortable for a lot of players. And it's just been hard. It just has. Because again, you can't do the most simple act of the game. You got to move forward. Picking up the tempo a little bit, being more assertive, being quicker, even if it leads to some more turnovers, but being quicker and making quicker decisions, I think that is the biggest fix for the Magic. And if they can do that, maybe they can salvage something. I know I've suggested that before. I'm pretty sure I have, but do that and you put yourself in a better position to win. So what comes next? Let's talk about Thursday's game and why, regardless of who they're playing, Thursday's game might be the most important one of the season. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you can now enjoy the VIP treatment, receiving a 3% IRA match on retirement contributions. The privileges of the very privileged are no longer exclusive. With Robinhood Gold, your annual IRA contributions are boosted by 3%. Plus, you also get 4% APY on your cash in non-retirement accounts. That's more than 8 times the national savings average. The perks of the high net worth are now available for any net worth. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. To receive your 3% boost on an annual IRA contributions, sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk, rate subject to change. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold at $5 per month for 1 year from first match. Must keep funds in IRA for 5 years. Go to Robinhood.com/boost. Over eight times the national average savings account interest rate. Claim is based on data from the FDIC as of November 18th, 2024. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. I talked a lot about this after Friday's loss to the Memphis Grizzlies. And look, the Magic have had 2 really devastating losses in the last 3 games. One game they certainly should have won, and Dale Osborne's technical foul was rescinded. That was the extra point the Grizzlies needed to win that game. It was tough. The Magic blew a 9-point lead with 4.5 minutes to play. Didn't get a timeout called. Looked very disorganized at the end of the game. Something I'm sure they worked on as well in Wednesday's practice. But I know I said this because I believe it, and we're going to repeat this message here. Friday's game ultimately did not matter because the Magic followed it up with an excellent effort Sunday against the Wizards. They did not let that defeat beat them twice. And look, they had some rough moments in that first half against Washington. That's what happens when your offense stinks. But they rallied. They dominated the second half. They won that game running away. It was not close. Blowout victory for the Magic. It doesn't dull the pain of that loss to the Grizzlies, but it's the exact response you needed. You can't change the past. The Magic lost. Blowout fashion. Embarrassing fashion. They cannot change that. The question is always, how do you respond to it? Don't ever be put in that situation to begin with, but now that you're in this situation, this is the character check. This is the most important game of the season. The Magic are on a 7-game homestand. They're currently 1-2 on the homestand. They've got 3 teams with losing records remaining coming up. 2 against Toronto, 1 against Chicago. To get to 5-2, and back to 500 before you head back out on the road, to get the successful homestand you were looking for at 5-2 instead of 4-3. You gave away your chances to steal the games against the winning teams that you had on your schedule. Now you got to take care of your home floor. You've got to win this game. Golden State is the game you've got to take. And look, Golden State is playing very well. Listen to our friends at Locked On Warriors for their perspective on this game as they hit the road with Jimmy Butler in tow. They are playing exceptionally well since the Jimmy Butler trade. If I give me a chance to stall, I will pull up those stats. Since the trade deadline, and that includes February 6th. Since the trade deadline, the Warriors are 6-2 with a 119.7 offensive rating and 106.1 defensive rating. They have the third best net rating in the league since the trade deadline. The Cavaliers, by the way, are first at plus 21.2. Really good stuff from the Cavs. They're 7-0. The Magic, since the trade deadline, are 4-4, 105.5 offensive rating, 108.5 defensive rating. Not great. This is a huge challenge. Can the Magic step up to the plate? Can they put the pain of that loss to the Cavs behind them and take it out on another team? Take it out on the Warriors. Make it so it doesn't matter who they have or how well they're playing, they're going to win. This is the challenge. The Magic were playing really well. No shame in losing to Memphis by 1. Even the way they lost, I'm not ashamed by that. We didn't think we were going to win that. It's so solace. They needed to steal that game to make up ground, but no one's bugging out that they lost that game. Not surprising they lost that game is how I should phrase that. But now you got to start picking these up. You can't let one loss become 2. You certainly cannot let that loss to Cleveland beat you twice. You can't feel sorry for yourself. You can't make the same mistakes. The Magic said all the right things coming out of practice on Wednesday. They said all the correct things, that they learned their lesson. They played with energy. They attacked things hard. They, played with intensity and focus. Okay, that's great. You did that in practice. Now you got to guard Steph Curry. Now you got to stop that Warriors team that stole a game from you and on their floor. You got to steal one back. You can't let them beat you twice. This is a character check. Are the Magic going to let another team come into their gym and run them out of the place? Are they going to let their focus and their mistakes cost them? Or are they going to answer? We've had character checks like this throughout the course of the season. Every team's going to have a character check. But the bottom line is this. The Detroit Pistons are winning 8 straight. The Heat are starting a long homestand. They started Wednesday with their win over the Hawks. The Magic don't have as many opportunities as the teams around them in the standings. They played the most games in the league so far. The Magic have to make a stand. They talk to us. They tell us what they know and think they're capable of doing. But we haven't seen the action. Not in a long time. You got humbled. You got beat. Prove to us that's not who you are. That's what Thursday's game is about. It is every game is the most important game of the season, but this is a humongous game for this team. Dare I say a must-win game? Dare I say it? I do. This is a game that's going to tell us who this Magic team is and what they're capable of doing in this final quarter of the season. Are they going to deliver or not? We'll find out. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. Find me on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast at Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all of the single podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. You can check us out as well on YouTube. Just search for Locked On Magic. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us there on Twitter at OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. As always, Thank you for your support. Now that you're done listening to me, be sure to check out the Locked On Magic Daily newsletter, the one stop for ultimate team coverage, team and league coverage, delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com. And start your day with the all-new free Locked On Magic newsletter. Again, that's LockedOnDaily.com. That's good to for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. We'll be back tomorrow to recap the Magic's game against the Golden State Warriors. Until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.